Welcome to another Petalmorphosis video. You're probably coming over either from my first impressions or my thesis video where I was covering the dialogue surrounding the Petalmorphosis release, but no fear. If you have the palette and you want to make more looks happen, you feel uninspired, and this is not to make you buy it. This is more so for the person who already bought it and they feel stuck. And listen, if it inspires you to purchase it, great. If not, and you don't care either way and just want to hang out, well, thank you so much for clicking on this video. And if it's your first time here, hi, I'm Alicia and I review and create tutorials using Pat McGrath lab palettes, and you can check out my extensive playlist covering every palette the brand has released since 2017. And if you want to check my original video out where I have dedicated swatches, I'll make sure to include that link down below, as this video will just be covering 6 looks, and I'll try to make them different from my first impression looks and also the short I uploaded, so I'm not overlapping and repeating myself. But just a few remarks about the color story. And yes, again, in my thesis video, what I'm calling it, I went over how there are no bake shades in this palette, and the whole thing with Motherships and Pat McGrath Labs is that these eyeshadow palettes were known for what the beauty community referred to as the special shades. These were an Italian bake formula in a variety of different finishes, and now we have an Italian pressed formula. And believe it or not, I do enjoy this color story. I know it might not be people's favorites, but some people were actually quite taken by it, quite enamored by it. I like kind of like the electric garden inspo behind it, and I'm excited, or was excited, to film this video because I was thinking about the colors and how we can mix and match. So if you want to get into it, it's time for you to come in a little closer. That's enough. We gotta put the house clip in. Also, if you would like to know what I have on my face, I'll make sure to list those products down below. I'm trying out the Burberry foundation. Yes, I grabbed a sample from Nordstrom. We did not commit to an entire bottle yet, as well as the Burberry concealer and the Burberry shiny lipstick. I went a little crazy. March was a little crazy. Actually, allow me to apply a little more of Rose Petal. I think this is such a beautiful shade, like just effortless for every day, where I just need to throw something on that's not beige or tan, right? I love those shades too, but the roses, they have a place in my life, in my heart. All right, we gotta start with primer. In the next Sephora savings event, well, I don't actually know if Sephora carries this primer. If they do, I will have to pick one up because I don't think I put anything on my lids just now. It's empty. All right, what shall we start with first? The obvious strategy is to be monochromatic, right? You can stick to the greens, the chartreuses, the mauve roses, the corals, but I think I want to experiment first with Astral Iridescent Iris, which I think quite beautiful. Oh yes, that's what someone asked. Hold on. I still have to film a dedicated comparison video, but someone wanted to compare the actual Iridescent Iris shade in Petalmorphosis to Lavendaring from Risque Rose. So this is Lavendaring, which, my gosh, one of my most favorites. And here is the actual Iridescent Iris shade. You can see it's lighter. Lavendaring has a slightly darker base there, not by a large degree, but I think you can detect that it's a little more lavender leaning versus the actual Iris shade. They have that similar kind of like squish consistency in the pan, which I think kind of indicates the shiny going on. But that's what I wanted to start with first, actually. And I'll pick up the Iridescent Iris shade with my finger and just plop that on the entire lid. And I do think using the warmth from your finger helps to press the flakies that you see when picking up the shade melt better into the skin, and will thus leave behind a shinier finish. So that already, yes, looks pretty icy, but I think it'll be interesting to combine it with Let me get another shader brush. Hold on. Shader, what am I talking about? I meant to say blender. Going in with Twilight Lilac, which is like the more mauve tone, and hit the crease with this to add a little more smoke, right? So this is a more straightforward combination where you could have went in with the Iridescent Iris shade on the lid, or even Blitz Bronze Supernova, something a little more smoky. And I'm just carefully placing that color through the crease, not disturbing the iris shade, meaning I don't want to get this matte too tangled up with the sparkly arclies, for lack of a better term. And hitting the lower part. Oh, that still had the Nocturnal Bloom shade on the brush, Alicia. Let me just switch and take Twilight Lilac here. Cool, that's pretty. This is where I wanted to go in with Nocturnal Bloom, the Hunter Green shade, and hit that across the lash line. I do enjoy combining the lilacs, mauves with the green. I think it's an interesting combination, and happy that, well, I say the brand because I'm not entirely sure if this was Pat's decision to include the Hunter Green in Petalmorphosis, but I think it's a nice contrast where if you wanted to change it up and not it be like Extreme Aubergine, the eggplant found in Bronze Seduction, or even like the plum shade from Utopian Dream. I'm just taking my time and tapping across the lash line so it can appear even. Pretty. So that's kind of like eye number one. Well, almost there. Let me slap on Divine Dawn for my highlight shade of choice. And Divine Dawn is a more straightforward metallic. It has nice shine, it's creamy, but it's not going to have the same shine and reflectivity as Iridescent Iris. I'm just punching in a little more of Nocturnal Bloom here on the inner part of my eye. There we go. And just to invite an entirely different shade, going in with the Astral Eden Envy here on the lower inner part of my eye, right? Because I think it still has pretty nice shine here, and just to kind of play with another shade. Now for the second eye, I can't recall, did I apply, I think I did Cosmic Fantasies all over the lid. Maybe, ooh, you know what? I want to do the Astral Eden all over the lid. I think I saw like a model on the Pat McGrath feed do exactly this, where she just used her finger and slapped this on in like a haphazard way, relying entirely on the texture itself to do its thing, right? Because of the smoky backdrop and also the shine factor, it has definitely a grungier feel when applied in this way. And again, the undercurrent color has like a smoky vibe to it, even though you can see like that chartreuse come through on the surface. That's pretty. I like that. And now I'll take that same shade and hit the lower lash line. I'm thinking, do we want to use Nocturnal Bloom to kind of like smoke out the edges? I love how that looks by itself, actually. That's probably one of the easiest looks you could achieve with Petalmorphosis, in my opinion. With the Astral Eden and also the Blitz Bronze Supernova, Cosmic Fantasies, just relying on the shade and texture to be your one and done look. That's pretty. I like that. For the inner corner, I think it'll be fun to use Astral Sunset Splendor, which is more of like this kind of apricot gig. I think it'll be an interesting combination to see how that pairs with the chartreuse. Very springy, very springy. And this is what I mentioned in my thesis video. And I also mentioned this in my original first impressions, where I feel that this new press formula, the lab has to develop a overlay shade that's pressed, that doesn't have color in the formula, but it's more where you could just tap it on like a transformer shade. I could also see what would happen if I do this. I think it just kind of blunts it. Well, no, that's not true. I see the coral kind of come through now layered on the Astral Eden shade. Not bad, but it doesn't quite have the same effect as like Astral Ghost Orchid, for instance. You know what I mean? Do I just want to gently taper the edges with Nocturnal Bloom on the Astral Eden Envy side? Just lightly, just to kind of give it, well, that was enough. This matte packs a punch for sure. If you wanted to smoke it out more, I didn't need a lot from that. That was more than enough. Okay, let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. And here's the first round using Petalmorphosis. I'm looking at the iris side, and as you saw in the close-ups, I added that wing with Nocturnal Bloom. I think for me, I would rather use the iris shade on top of the matte or on top of the burgundy or the bronze shade, because it looks quite icy by itself. So I might reserve that color, that shadow rather, to the inner corner, lower inner lash line, or maybe like a spotlight moment bracketed by the burgundy or the bronze. I love how the Eden side turned out, and that was fairly easy to achieve. You saw how I just kind of finger tapped my way there, and the texture naturally left behind a smokiness, like a haziness, which I like with these types of shades, and the shines is pretty. It's a pretty shade. Something else I like to do with Motherships, not only with Petalmorphosis, but it's definitely fitting for this step, is to use the eyeshadow for a blush. And I especially love Lunar Nectar as blush. The Twilight Lilac shade could look a little muted on my cheeks, but depending on, you know, maybe where I place it and what eyeshadow I pair it with, it'll work out. But Lunar Nectar is more foolproof. It is a little more seamless with the application, and I think that brings the entire look together. Also, Rose Petal from Burberry looks incredible with these two eyeshadow looks. Yes? All right, now that we have round one down, it's time to go into two, and that leaves me a little bit of time in deciding what I want to do. Okay, well, I'll see you back here in a bit. Round two, what can we start with? Well, I again wanted to demonstrate the versatility of this press formula. Again, not like our beloved baked formula, but I think fairly easy to plop on with a finger. Despite it being pressed, however, if you pick up a significant amount with your finger, you still run the risk of fallout. So just make sure you carefully brush those bits off the cheeks so that they don't leave behind any streaks. But you can see, again, the nature of the shade kind of leaves behind a hazy effect through the crease, even though I didn't run a brush through my crease. Right? So it could stay just as is. And to mimic what we did with the Astral Eden shade, I'll take now the Blitz Bronze right under the lash line here, just so we can envelop the entire eye to create more prominent smoky effect. If you want to extend the ends of the shadow, then yes, I would recommend that you go in with a brush to flick out the edges carefully in order to shape out the crease. And notice that I'm tapping here and not over manipulating the texture, because we don't want it to drop to the cheeks. We want to keep it mostly here on the eyes. But it doesn't take much to create that haze with this newer press formula. And like I mentioned in my first demo, I wanted to see the iris shade more as a highlight moment. So I think it'll be interesting to combine it with the bronze as our highlight. So I'm just tapping the iridescent iris shade here through the inner corner, and on the inner corner I should say, and pulling it through the inner arc to create more of like that wave of lilac. And if you want to, you could shade the edges with Twilight Lilac or Lunar Nectar. I think I'm gonna leave it alone. I kind of like how it is by itself. Now I wanted to redo an eye look I created on my first impressions. People were calling it muddy. I didn't think it turned out muddy, but let me try it again. I'm gonna blame myself for poor execution. That was combining the Nocturnal Bloom with either Twilight Lilac or Lunar Nectar. And let me run Lunar Nectar through the crease first, because I like combining the rosy coral with the hunter green. I thought that was a pretty combination. But you know, I'll try it again. Maybe I can use a different brush. Maybe I can tap instead of rub. Like, you know, we can try a few things. I gotta hand it to Lunar Nectar though. I think is a gorgeous matte. Not only on the cheeks as you saw in the first demo, but also through the crease here. It just has like a beautiful haze effect that's soft, and you can keep it subdued. Either pairing this with Divine Dawn or even the bronze shade, Cosmic Fantasies, Astral Sunset Splendor would be a great addition on the lid paired with Lunar Nectar. Now let's see here. What brush do I want to use? All right, I'm gonna go in with Sonia's Kakishibu eye brush, the T4. Tap into Nocturnal Bloom and start to tap here on the outer edge. And again, I'm going to be careful and make sure that the colors kind of still remain true and they don't, what some were saying, muddy up. Or maybe I don't have the correct definition in my mind of what muddy looks. I thought muddiness referred to the end result appearing like mud, right? But I thought that the two colors were still distinguishable between the hunter green and this rosy coral. I'm saying rosy coral, maybe it's more like an actual rose. Now I'm taking my shader to even out that placement and then running the brush over the edges. I think that looks okay. I mean, you could let me know. Maybe I have poor judgment on what muddiness is. I don't know. I think it looks fine, whatever. And then I'll pull Nocturnal Bloom here on the lower lash line and connect to what we applied on the outer lid here. That's why I like this flat top blender from Sonia, because at the same time it evenly places the color, it will also blend it when you start to move the brush. So I think I think it's pretty. All right, let's now, what did I do on the first? I'm gonna look at my video because I forgot. I applied the Iridescent Iris shade. Okay, so this time I think I want to go in. Ooh, should we go in with the burgundy? That would be pretty. Or Astral Sunset Splendor. I think I'm gonna go in with the burgundy. I think that'll be an interesting combination. Very, I want to say scholastic. Not that it reminds me of subculture, because that's what I loved about subculture, including the mustard, the hunter greens, the burgundies. Not quite what that palette produced or can kind of create, but the smokier shades now paired together, that's not bad. And now running the edges, or running the brush over the edges of Cosmic Fantasies just to smooth it out a bit. I had a little bit of leftover Nocturnal Bloom, but I'm not mad. I'm not mad at the shading effect that just occurred there. Inner corner, however, you know what? I think Blitz Radiant Rasputin, ooh, oh my gosh, that I mentioned in my thesis video, would have loved to see the Rasputin shade in the Bake Blitz formula that was more like burnished. Oh my goodness. Because we have a brilliant metallic turquoise or teal, however you want to classify it, from Decadence. But to have that shade as baked, but let's see what it does. Interesting. I think it's fine. You know what? I could apply, I was gonna say the iris shade on top to see what would happen. It does look dark here because the turquoise shade, I think, is like a medium tone. I just hit the mic, oh gosh. So it's not gonna have the same brightening effect as the lighter shades in here. What happens if I go in with Astral Eden? Oh, that brightened it up a little bit. It gave it a little more contrast. Okay. There's a lot happening here on this eye all of a sudden. My gosh. And I'm hitting the lower lash line with Lunar Nectar to bring everything together. I don't know if this was the right choice. You know what? I will take a little bit from the inner corner and go in with Astral Eden Envy instead, but keep the turquoise there as like a transition through the high arc. How about that? That was a better decision because the Astral Eden shade appears brighter and will have a more highlight effect and won't appear so shadowy here on the inner corner. All right, I think, shoot, we changed the lip. I think so. Maybe we'll go with something beige. Of course, typical me. With that said, I'll slap on the lashes, a new lip, and I'll be right back. Round 2 using Petalmorphosis, and I have to say, this smoky eye we created kind of reminds me of an eye that exists in Subversive, because that palette is quite grungy and smoky, but now with the garden sensibility, if you will. And the first eye we started a lot softer. You can see that Blitz Bronze Supernova is great on its own, and I primarily just went in with my finger, although I finessed the edges with the brush just to kind of take the blend out a little bit out from my lash line, because I do like more of like that hazy wing effect for shadow is personally on my eyes. And I love the green with the rose. I do. I know people don't like that combination. They called it muddy, whatever. I will continue to combine these shadows because I love how it looks, especially with Cosmic Fantasies. It's stunning. In my opinion. If you're wondering what I applied on the lips, Hermes, I know. In number 18, the beige te shade, THE apostrophe, and the Gucci Glowing Care lip in Lynette Stone. Love this combination. So now we have arrived at the third round. So stay tuned. I am trying to think what else we can do, but we'll come up with something fun. With that said, I'll see you back here in a minute. Round 3. I think I want to start off with Divine Dawn and approach this eye as simply as possible. If you want to capitalize on Petalmorphosis's soft moments, I think this is a nice way to go. Now, Divine Dawn is going to be subdued. It has more of like a satin metallic finish on the lids, as you see here. It can be a spotlight moment as I'm placing it, or you can cover the entire lid. I think it has like more like a lilac backdrop to the color, very much pearl and finish. And now I think I want to go in with Cosmic Fantasies as like a shader shade, right? Because the metallic in this formula, or what am I saying? The metallic has nice blending capabilities where you can blend the edges and it still appear diffused. So I wanted to bracket Divine Dawn by placing Cosmic Fantasies on the outer and inner parts of my lid first, and then run the brush over the edges for the halo moment. And as I like to do, just kind of smoking it out to create a hazy wing effect, you know, lightly shaped in that way. Cosmic Fantasies here on the lower lash line, 3/4 of the way in. I could have mimicked what I had on the lid. I could still do that actually. Let me pick up a smaller brush here so that I can just tap Divine Dawn here right on the center of my lower lash line. Now, lower inner corner, I want to go in with the Astral Sunset Splendor shade here so it can have more of a brightening effect when combined with the Cosmic Fantasy shade. And why not? I'll also apply that for inner corner highlight. Oh, that's pretty. I like that. Now here's what this is what I wanted to do. I could take like Astral Solstice from Midnight Sun and just tap it on top of Divine Dawn and have like a really pretty twinkle effect. Instead though, I take Astral Iridescent Iris that kind of has that a little bit of that translucent a little bit, but see how it basically makes Divine Dawn significantly more lilac in color and also in the shine. So if you wanted, you could tap the Iridescent Lilac shade on top of Divine Dawn if you wanted a little more of a wet effect on the lid. And just to finish the edges, I think I want to go in with Twilight Lilac, softly running it through right here, just to finish the blend. And now for the finale eye. You know, I'm thinking about taking Blitz Radiant Rhapsody, not in the way I did on my short, but mimicking the technique I demonstrated for the first demo, where I took Astral Eden Envy and used my finger to just kind of tap it on my lid, and that naturally create a haze effect, but keeping it here. However, what would happen if I used like the Lunar Nectar shade to like blend out the edges? You know what I mean? I'm gonna do just that. Lunar Nectar on the outer part of the lid. I'm gonna tap so I'm not disrupting the turquoise bits, and then softly running that color through the crease. You know, that's not bad. It's not bad, but I would like to refine it a little bit more. The turquoise is fun. I think people will naturally gravitate towards pairing Rhapsody with Nocturnal Bloom, because I get it how that's just a safer bet when it comes to combining shades and whatnot. But you know me, I like to live on the edge a little bit and see what would happen if I combine it with unlikely shades. I think this is nice. I'm just taking my time. I'm applying a lot of Lunar Nectar on the inner part and also building the color here on the outer lid space. The Astral Eden though, on the center, so it can have a little bit of a duochrome effect, you know what I mean? So you have the chartreuse now kind of emerging from the lash line and going into that beautiful turquoise shade. Now for the inner corner, I could go bronze, but you know what? I'm gonna keep it ultra simple and apply Divine Dawn as our inner corner highlight. I know, such a safe choice, Alicia, but I think it's going to further emphasize what we're trying to do here, like this heavy contrast between Lunar Nectar and the Rhapsody shade, you know what I'm saying? Now, I could do, yes, just hitting the center of the lid with the Rhapsody shade, right? Because I want to kind of mimic what I have on the lid, which is Rhapsody on the center and then Lunar Nectar on the outer parts, and following up with just that Lunar Nectar in and out the lower lash line, and again just looking after fallout if it occurred. Oh, that's pretty. That's not bad, actually. I like how that turned out. Initially, I was unsure. I was like, did I make the right decision? But fully committing to this idea, especially I think that's what did it. Bringing in Lunar Nectar here on the inner part of the eye, I think kind of enveloped the turquoise shade in a way that I was looking for, where I didn't want it to blend with the turquoise. I just wanted it to like kind of sit on top, so the shades were still distinguishable between each other. Does that make any sense? All right, I think we're done. Final round complete. That means we're gonna slap on the lashes. I think I'm gonna keep this lip combo, actually. Or I could try a few when I get back on here, so stay tuned, hold on tight. I'll be back in a minute. Friends, and that concludes our 6-look video with round 3. Maybe my favorite round, with unexpected combinations. Oh, my apologies. The lip I have on is the Kulfi Lip Oil in Tamarind, one of my most favorite formulas and lip shades in my lip collection. I loved how the turquoise eye turned out, mainly because I was apprehensive about the outcome, didn't know where it was going as it was coming about. But I think with Petalmorphosis, you have to capitalize on the individual shades themselves and just let them do their magic and not over combine and over layer. And what I mean by that is take advantage of this press formula. Okay, because again, people were saying that some of the baked formulas, like the triple digit ones and maybe the VR ones, were too flaky, not great adherence, just fall out crazy. And this press formula, although has some flakiness, not as much, and you can then just tap with your finger, take advantage of the color and also the finish, right? Not only with the sparkly shades, but the metallic ones too. Cosmic Fantasies is just beautiful by itself. Run that burgundy over the lid, kind of tap the edges out, blur them, diffuse them, and you're basically done, right? You can follow up Divine Dawn. If you wanted to spice it up, you can go in with the Iridescent Iris shade on the inner corner, or even go in with the Eden shade on the inner corner. Or maybe you could layer Eden over the Fantasy one, or Sunset Splendor over the Fantasy one. So there's a lot of maneuvering in Petalmorphosis, and I can understand why one wouldn't think it Pat's best color. Maybe it's because of that bias, knowing that it doesn't have the special shades, quote unquote, anymore. And this was like a rude awakening. Petalmorphosis came with a lot of baggage because we had high expectations. We were wondering, oh, we haven't seen a Mothership in 2 years. Is this going to be a resurgence for the brand? And we saw that not quite a resurgence, more of a pivot to an entirely new formula that kind of like snuck in with Moonlit Seduction, and that was pretty much the introduction with the pressed formula. And I think with people's disappointment, it kind of dampened their inspiration, in my opinion. It kind of like put a lid on it because like, there are no bake shades, like why bother? Right? But I think if you approach this as an entirely new Pat McGrath Labs consumer, the color story is quite nice. If you could separate yourself, I think you would still have a delightful time using Petalmorphosis. I know I did, applying these shadows and creating looks for this video, but I understand the perspective entirely. And for someone who was completely enamored by Pat McGrath and who has met Pat in person twice, knowing her as Pat and who she is as a runway makeup artist, first and foremost, Pat is still Pat, right? I think she is a visionary in the beauty industry, and even if her brand fell short last year, definitely suffered major losses with all those Sephora returns and the brand in general just going through a lot, right? I still see Pat as Pat. And again, I don't know to what degree her involvement was with Petalmorphosis or with her brand in general for the last year or even the last 2 years. But just again, knowing Pat and meeting her, getting a taste of her enthusiasm is, I think that's what keeps me in and makes me realize that this is unfortunately what happens when your brand takes off quickly and it cannot keep up with that demand, especially if people are returning your palette like crazy. And I understand why the brand had to make that decision, continuing to produce a formula that had ingredients that weren't great for the eyes, that Sephora was deeming not suitable for sale, that was pretty much the cause for all those returns, right? So I understand, but I also acknowledge people's disappointment. And again, I'm separating myself from the bake shades. Listen, if I want to use the bake shades, I got them. You saw in my thesis video how many I have all of Pat's palettes, okay? And before the reformulation will take place, I'm interested to know how those colors will perform, like the Blitz Orchids and the Gigabytes and the Astral VR Pinks, or the VR Pinks, I should say, Blitz Emerald, you know what I'm saying? How those are gonna be reformulated. We'll see. But with all that to say, let me know if this was helpful at all. And I plan on doing a comparison video, but there are a few other videos I would like to film first. I'll get to it. I had mentioned in my thesis video. Maybe I will do a live instead of a dedicated like edited video. We shall see. But if you made it this far, consider liking this video. Clicking that thumbs up helps me tremendously. It tells the algorithm I'm worth watching and watching again. And consider subscribing because I have a ton of video ideas on deck. And to know what those are, click that notification bell so you are alerted of those uploads immediately. Make sure you check out my thesis video, also my first impressions video. I'll see you in those down in the comments for this video and on here again next time.